Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
It's conflict. It's one of those things that shows up, and most of the time we don't want it. Usually, being compelling is really good, but sometimes when you're trying to build a business, or you're trying to write a book, or you're just trying to get through the day and decide what to eat. There's all those little conflicts that show up, or disagreements, or whatever you want to call it. We're calling it conflicts today. So what we really want to talk about is, you can get out of a conflict, and there's a few ways to do that. And then we're going to talk about really not necessarily just dealing with conflict, but how do you move forward when you're having a discussion and negotiation, creating that position of moving forward through where you're not seeing eye to eye. I mean, without sticking the gloves on, basically.
Right. And, a lot of people try to avoid conflict. And so we're going to talk about some ways people avoid conflict. And the first one is really you want out of the conflict. So people love to say, let's agree to disagree. And the funny thing is, for me, I think that is not doing anything other than two people walking away out of connection, disconnected, not liking where the thing is, and it's a lose-lose kind of argument. So what we're really agreeing to is, hey, in this situation, let's have a lose-lose situation so nobody gets anything. Sound good?
Okay, fine. I'll go do this. I mean, you've heard it. You may have done it.
Right. And then the next one that we find people doing is they change their position and agree. And another word for that, it's a big word, it's called placate. And we're just giving people what they want. And so, you know what? Fine. You just do that. And it's another way to not have a relationship, not really understand where the other person is coming from, or want to understand and connect with the other person. It's just giving in.
Yeah, and I think so many times it's like we're triggered by something. Either we're not feeling well, or we want the best for the other one, or we stubbed our toe, so we're going to take it out on whatever the situation might be at hand. So those are kind of some ways to get out, but we really sometimes getting out and having a moment to separate and collect your thought is the best move, and we highly suggest that at times.
Sure.
Just take a minute. That it's okay to be frustrated, but recognize that you're in a relationship, you're creating a relationship, and you want it to move forward and grow with you.
And one of the things I would suggest, if you do need a minute, is say, hey, you know what? This is really important to me, and I can feel myself getting upset, and own it. And so awesome. I want to take a minute so I can collect myself, because it wouldn't be fair to keep going this way, and really own what's going on with you. Then go back into the situation and be able to have a conversation.
Yeah, so let's dive into the 6 steps. And Terry's the expert at it. But we get along. I mean, we've been together for 10 years, and we have our spouts, but we always move through them. And that's
she actually just agrees with me a lot.
Disagrees or just agrees? Disagrees or just agrees?
I said just agrees. So the first one that we're talking about is really questions, to be curious, really, and understand where the other person is coming from. When we're in a conflict, our automatic reaction is to polarize and try to get our idea heard. And I mean, we at times have had that. And then the first thing that whoever is in a little bit more balanced position does is say, okay, I'm going to put mine aside and ask more questions, become curious about what's going on with the other one. And so I'll get more curious about something if she's upset, and ask her more about it. Or oftentimes she starts asking me more questions about what I'm talking about, so that we can gather more information about what's going on, rather than just jump into a reaction.
Yeah, I think so many times we just get snippets, because our world is moving so fast, and it's hard to keep up. Oftentimes we talk about there's so much noise in the world, and how are we separating just that one chunk out, where my experience and where I'm coming through, I might just jump in the middle of it and start telling, versus giving a little backstory. And so that's my frame is already built up. and his frame where he's coming through might be a little different. So that's the first one, is really understanding the point of view and becoming curious. So let's step into the second one, which is really acknowledging that you understand and you can appreciate where they're coming from. It's kind of recapping what you're hearing them say, because it's going to resonate in with you. And it's so important to take the minute to do it. Take it away, Terry.
Well, really, when we're acknowledging somebody, we're letting them know that we can hear that they have, whether it's a different point of view, same point of view. And the fact of the matter is, I can acknowledge somebody with the same point of view all day long very easily. But it takes a lot more. It takes a lot more to acknowledge somebody when they have a different point of view. And it also takes that curiosity we were talking about in the very beginning with number one of asking those questions to really acknowledge that, okay, they are coming from a different place. They have a different emotional experience of whatever's going on, and then really appreciate that their view is different. And from their point of view, it might be more accurate.
Yeah, I mean, people like to be validated that you're hearing what they're saying too. I mean, and that they've put in the work. I think that's really important too.
For sure. And then the third is asking about solutions and starting to really look at what's possible rather than who's right. I like also personally asking about what the goal is in the conversation or in the discussion, because if there's a goal that has nothing to do with the conversation, then we're off topic. And so coming to some kind of conclusion or goal between the two people in the conflict, now we actually can work together towards that. Does that make sense? Do you have anything to add?
No, that totally makes sense. I think typically the goal is the same, is where my thought is on that. It's just that two different perspectives of how to get to where you're going, or it's a snapshot. So I think step 3 is really asking the other person what they see as solutions. Mm-hmm. And then step 4 is, what are some solutions you might have to that same goal of where you're going? And that's pretty self-explanatory. And then so we'll just go to 5 real quick. But it's listen to the other as best as you can, and then listen to yourself. And it's usually that person that's more balanced and in touch with what's going on that is going to be the one to identify that first.
Well, they might identify it first, and they might also invite the other person to share more.
Great point.
And so
along the journey, yeah.
Really, and what I like is the idea of who's going to be more balanced in this, and then it's all about probably her. And
I was thinking that guy behind us.
Oh yeah, the dude. But when we're going from a place of challenging each other to be more balanced and be more open, we can have a much more open conversation. And so it's really about understanding what the goal is and bringing it back to the goal of the conversation. And, when we do that, we start to really work as a team instead of feel like we're against each other.
Isn't he so soothing just to talk to?
I don't know. And so when we get there and we look at all the solutions, if there is an impasse, you can seek a third party. For me, I don't think I've really experienced a time when there's a conflict that we can't actually seek some kind of resolution. Impasses are really interesting in the idea that we've just gone right back to agree to disagree. And so the impasse... Go ahead.
May I give
Sure.
a different spin as
Sure.
someone that
that
isn't a professional communicator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think, we've kind of danced around it, but the whole idea of do you have the skills to stop back and ask questions rather than just react? It's really a skill set that we're talking about that people don't have. Once they have that skill set, I think they don't need the help of the third party, but maybe that third party is the one that teaches them those skills.
Oh, of course.
That, we might take a higher ed communication course, but we learn from what's around us. Mm-hmm. Where our beliefs and communication come from. Where do they come from? Our parents, our the internet, our teachers, our
friends,
church, like where is that coming from? And is it what you truly believe, or is it the neighbors across the way that are yelling at their dogs and kids and we can hear them 3 houses down? And then you hear the kid yelling, you're like, well, we know where that came from.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's the same thing of listening to your partner or your client or whatever that may be.
Exactly. And so I think what I'm saying, and I completely agree with what Christine is saying, and
see how he did that? And
the impasse is really about stopping too soon, and maybe instead of having an impasse, I need to take a break and step away and understand where I'm coming from so I can have the conversation in a different way, because an impasse is really moving back to that we're going to agree to disagree. And that's what impasse is all about, is we're just not going to come to an agreement. And the reality is that every conflict is bringing us to a new place where we can grow together. And so conflict, and a lot of people end up avoiding it. And the reality is conflict is the number one thing that starts to create growth. And so we don't want impasse, because impasse suggests we're going to stop and settle. And so we want to move forward. We want to understand. And so really, when we put all the cards on the table, we can come to an understanding of each other. It doesn't mean that there's going to be any kind of somebody losing then. We're going to together move forward, and it might not be the way that party A wanted to or party B wanted to, but we are going to be on the same page about how we move through, and it might be a C idea. And so we don't have to, and I suggest in any conflict, don't be married or committed to your idea winning. It's really, how do we win as a team moving forward with this conflict?
Yeah, how do we get to that goal that is intended as the conversation has created? Whether it's
for sure,
whether it's eating, what the schedule is, how to write a book, how to enter a story. Do you teach then story? Do you story then teach? It's all those. It's really funny how little things people let turn into bigger things.
Right. And as long as there's open communication, and one of the rules that Christine and I have is that whenever there is some kind of conflict, we stop and we start talking about what's going on in our day personally, and then what the goal is and where we want to go with whatever we're in conflict with. And that's one of the biggest ways, and one of the most rewarding ways that I've had with her, is that we both have agreed that we can do that. And, I allow her to have her bad day, frustrating moments, and she allows me to have mine. And luckily I have more of them. So,
and luckily they're moments.
They're just moments. And so the great thing is when we can have those conversations and don't take them personally, and really be a support to the other person rather than instigator of more conflict, then we can really move forward faster.
That just sounds exhausting.
It is. It is. And so, be supportive of the people you're talking to. Even in conflict is a chance for further growth. And so talk about what's going on, because when we look at it and examine it, we find that this is a place where we can move forward. And so I'm super excited that we're able to talk about this particular topic. We've had a lot of clients that have asked about it. We have a lot of clients that have been stuck in it and moved through it when we describe these things this way. And in fact, we have our own conflicts from time to time. And it just reminds us how important it is to frame it in this way of being able to really move into communication rather than conflict.
Yeah. No, that's it. So, follow those 6 steps. You can go back and rewatch it, or share it with people that you see in conflict, and see if they can apply these steps, these 6 steps, because that is where the growth happens in your relationship. And like we just described, it's exhausting to be in conflict all day. You just tell yourself more stories. These are some tips of how you can work through it and enjoy and get more out of life. So, celebrate your day and the relationships you have. And we'll see you tomorrow at 10:10, and we'll guide you through more ways to make life wonderful.
That's what we're going to do.
That didn't fly right. We love it. Take care.
See you next time.